Good morning and welcome to the Mason County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for October 18th. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Tim Sheldon.
I'm here as well.
Commissioner District 3, Terry Jeffrey.
Here. Correspondence and organizational business. Can you please report the correspondence received by the Commission?
Sure. The Liquor and Cannabis Board sent a marijuana license application for I-502 Gardens. The Federal Emergency Management Agency sent a letter regarding flood hazard areas. The Port of Shelton sent budget and levy resolutions. Homeland Security sent preliminary flood insurance study. And also Marilyn Vogler and Deborah Soper sent input regarding today's hearing.
Thank you. 4.2, contract award announcement. I think that's Loretta. Loretta Swanson, our Technical Services Manager.
Morning, Commissioners. Here just to report, sometime in April you authorized Public Works to select or seek out contractors to do a replacement of a lift pump in the Belfair area, and that work went forward. Solicited 3, had one responsive contractor, and that's been awarded and the work's been replaced.
And the total cost of that pump replacement?
$16,528.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Loretta? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
That brings us to item number 5. This is our open forum for citizen input. If you'd like to address the Commission on any items not on the agenda, please raise your hand. I thought Cheryl Williams was going to tell us about the League of Women Voters.
Well, actually, you need her to because we're not going to be able to do. We're going to be 20 minutes off of.
I wanted to be able to tell you that that we have a budget hearing or budget workshop scheduled and won't be able to attend. The League of Women Voters is doing a meeting today, running through all the initiatives on our ballots.
Initiatives, referenda, and propositions.
And there are quite a few of them.
7.
7, yes. Okay, then that moves us to item number 6. This is the adoption of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we adopt the agenda as presented today to the Board of County Commissioners.
I'll second.
It's moved and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the October 4th, 2016 regular meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and second to approve the October 4th, 2016 regular meeting minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. The next item is our action agenda. The intention is for us to approve all items with one vote and one motion. We will read through these items and provide an opportunity for anybody in the audience or the Commission to ask any questions on the agenda. Alternatively, you also have the option to request that any of the items be removed for a separate vote and testimony. I will ask Commissioner Sheldon to read items 8.1 through 8.5. 8.2 has been removed. Commissioner Netherland, 8.6 through 8.9. And I will read 8.10 through 8.11.
All right, Madam Chair. 8.1, approval to set a public hearing for November 22nd, 2016 at 6:30 p.m. to consider a rezone request of 3 parcels on McEwen Prairie Road from rural residential 20 to rural commercial 2. 8.2 has been removed. 8.3, approval of the fiscal year 2016 management performance grant contract E17-096 originating from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the State Military Department. 8.4, approval to set a public hearing for Tuesday, October 25, 2016 at 6:30 p.m. to take the necessary action in order to deed certain tidelands on the Squaxin Island to the Squaxin Island tribe. And 8.5, approval to cancel the November 14, 2016 Commissioner briefing and November 15, 2016 Commissioner meeting due to scheduling conflicts.
Madam Chair, item number 8.6 reads, approval of the resolution attending amending Resolution 6-13, updating the procedure for county office closure due to weather conditions or natural disaster. Item number 8.7, approval for the following 2017 contracts for lodging tax as recommended by the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Visitor Information Center, Shelton Chamber of Commerce, includes Hoodsport location, $60,000. North Mason Chamber of Commerce includes Union location, $40,000. Tourism Promotion and Festival and Small Events, Blue Collar Agency, $228,000, with $33,500 dedicated to marketing of festivals and small events. Item number 8.8, approval of Veterans Assistance Fund applications for necessity items, $450, and utilities, $117, for a total of $567 as recommended by the Veterans Service Office. Item number 8.9, approval to set a public hearing for November 22nd, 2016 at 6:30 p.m. to consider a speed limit change on Plantation Way from milepost 0.20 to milepost 0.56.
Item 8.10, approval of the warrants. Our Claims Clearings Fund warrants for numbers 8043215 through 8043649, totaling $1,416,869.52. Direct Deposit Fund warrants 35163 through 35549, totaling $610,488.70. Our Direct Deposit Fund, Salary Clearing Fund warrants 7002240 through 7002281, totaling $892,414.90. And our administrative bond fees from the treasurer of $1,200 for a total of $2,290,973.12. Year-to-date, our claims clearing total is $26,278,953.34. Our direct deposit year-to-date total is $10,774,153. Our salary clearing year-to-date total is $11,521,287.62, and administrative bond fees year-to-date are $1,200. Finally, 8.11, approval to send a letter to the Mason County Democratic Central Committee requesting they nominate 3 persons to the county commissioners to consider for the Mason County clerk position that is being vacated by Ginger Brooks, effective January 1, 2017. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions on any of the items just read? Commissioners, do you have any questions? Would anybody like any of the items removed for a separate vote? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve all the items on the action agenda presented today.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve items 8.1 through 8.11 on today's action agenda, with the exception of 8.2, which has been removed. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make a note about 8.4. This has been an item that the Commission and the Squaxin Island Tribal Council have dealt with for many months, and it's exciting to know that, to me, and I believe the other 2 commissioners as well, that those tidelands, a certain parcel there, I think it's about 23 acres or 26, something like that, will be returned to the tribe. There's quite a lot of history involved with that parcel going back into the 1800s. So if we pass this today, and we will have a ceremony with the tribe to transfer these tidelands, and I think at that time there'll be a lot of discussion about the history, and it'll be a very celebratory event. So looking forward to it.
Commissioner Sheldon, I thank you for taking the lead on this. It is a good move to bring those lands back to the tribe. It's an interesting history, and I hope at some point that gets advertised or at least reported for the community to understand what happened
Just
there.
to clarify for the community, it's not something that we should have had. It wasn't ours. It's not a tribal thing. It's not a banner back and forth about land rights or usage. That's not what it is. We should not have been the ones on title on this, and we're fixing what was broken.
Well, thank you. I was the business manager for the tribe for several years back in, I think it was 1979 through 82 or 80 through 83, something like that. And worked on one of the other issues out there was the state park, which was a lease at one time from the tribe to the state, the Boat Inn Park, and now that's been returned to the tribe. So there've been a lot of changes and a lot of issues with land on the original reservation, which was only included the island itself. So all that property that the tribe has in Camilche was acquired by the tribe.
Commissioner, I thought I remembered there was still a portion of the island in the ownership of the Department of Natural Resources.
Uh-huh.
Is that still?
I think there are several parcels
There.
that are still belong to DNR, but I think those are being transferred as well.
Okay. Okay,
So-
good. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. We have, next on the item, on the agenda is a continuation of a public hearing, but that is not scheduled to start till 9:30. So I will ask that we move to item number 10, our board reports and calendars. Is there a commissioner who would like to report their calendar or any board reports? I'll start then. Let's see, let me move my calendar to the week. So last week, following our commission meeting, we had a budget workshop. We had a meeting of the MACECOM. Very interesting thing happened in that there was a report to the Department of Labor and Industry of a potential safety issue for our sheriff's deputies who frequently are called out to areas that are are dead zones, basically, for the radios. And there was an urgency from the Department of Labor and Industries for policies to be reviewed for situations like this. And I'm very thankful that this deputy, whoever did, it was a whistleblower, stepped up and made people aware that we need to be very diligent about when a deputy alone is being sent out to an area that we know is a dead zone, and there are many, many dead zones, unfortunately, in this county. And so that was reported on in our MACECOM meeting. I did attend the Metropolitan Park District Candidate Forum held out at Alderbrook on the 11th, and then we had budget workshops on the 12th. I had to cancel our budget workshops on the 12th, and our elected official director meeting was canceled due to a need to go to a doctor appointment. Let's see. And then our weather issues kind of canceled everything
Yeah.
else on the 13th and 14th, including a bridge tour of the Hood Canal Bridge. We did have a special meeting on the 14th to declare an emergency, and this was a very proactive approach, and I thank our Department of Emergency Management Services for proactively asking that we declare the emergency, which allowed county staff in many different departments to proceed with actions that would ensure safety, as well as be able to expenditure some monies outside of our normal processes. And though thankfully I don't think we had to utilize any of those powers, but it also provided an opportunity for people who had property damage due to the storm to be able to report that for any kind of FEMA reimbursement. Let's see, then we had our commissioner briefings yesterday. I attended the Planning Advisory Commission meeting last night. Following today's meeting, we'll have a budget workshop, Mason Transit Authority Board meeting, budget workshops again Wednesday the 19th, meeting of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. There's a wonderful event happening down in Olympia at the Minert Center called Laughter Not Stigma. A comedian who suffers from schizophrenia will be it's a fundraiser for the NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness, and basically it's just it's fundraiser, but it'd be an opportunity to hear from people who suffer from mental illness, and in a funny way about what some of the issues are that they deal with. I have a Mason Transit Authority Finance Committee meeting. There'll be a Washington State Association of Counties conference call regarding a very important Supreme Court decision, Hearst versus Whatcom County, which has the potential for tremendous implications regarding exempt wells. And then I'll be attending the Economic Development Council luncheon. I have a special meeting of the Mason Matters Executive Committee, and then I'll be on the phone for a Washington State Association of Counties Timber Counties conference call regarding some Department of Natural Resources special treatment of harvest in areas where there are, don't remember the critter, but a critter on the Endangered Species Act, marble murrelet. It's a bird. And then we'll come back here for commissioner briefings on Monday the 24th. We have an evening meeting on the 25th, so we'll have a workshop that morning. And then we have a lot of public hearings on the meeting of the 25th.
Well, Madam Chair, you mentioned the marbled murrelet. It's been described as a 16-ounce beer can with wings. It's about the size of the bird, so very interesting bird. Lays its egg on a usually a hemlock limb about sometimes 50 miles inland, and then it travels all the way to the ocean.
And it's a seabird, yeah.
To fish and bring that all the way back. So
My
to the
goodness.
nest, which they don't build. They don't build a nest.
Oh, they
They
take
just
other people's
put
nests,
put
or other
the
birds'
egg right on top of the moss on the big limbs. That's why they have to have old growth, so the limbs have to be exceptionally big.
I see.
You mentioned some of the items that we both attended. Of course, the briefings yesterday. I was back to last week. I'm sorry I wasn't here for the meeting. I had a meeting of Northwest Power and Conservation Council in Portland, but I was able to call in, so thank you for that opportunity. I met with some other legislators on the Chehalis River Task Force, which is finishing their final EIS. Our Department of Ecology Director, Maya Bellin, was there, quite a few different people from around our area as well, so that's moving along. Wanted to mention a meeting I have here after we close today with Olympic College. They're doing a video and about to celebrate the 20-year anniversary for Olympic College here in Shelton.
Congratulations.
And so that's quite an event, and we'll talk a little bit on the video about the history of the fundraising and those that were involved. And I think it still is the only campus that's ever been funded locally. And the state didn't say, well, time to put a branch campus in Shelton. The people decided they needed to do it and raised the money to build that building. So it's quite impressive. I've got I wanted to report a little bit, we have just a couple seconds here, report on a meeting I had yesterday with the treasurer. I went up and talked to her about some of the issues with the bond, perhaps refinancing the bonds for the Belfair Sewer District, but I did notice an email that came from Leo Kim in our auditor's office to all of us commissioners, and it talks about the state auditor's office, their accountability audit, and that's underway right now. And this was just a little prelude, I think, to some of the issues that we're facing. I just mentioned a couple of them. The Belfair Sewer Loans and Collections. We still have no utility collection policy for past due accounts, and that's something I think we need to really take a hard look at. Loan agreements on remaining accounts have not been obtained. No progress since last audit. And these are the loans that were made to individuals to help them decommission their septic tanks and drain fields while the new sewer system was being installed. And those agreements were never signed, apparently. So that is an issue the state auditor is flagging. Another item that she mentioned, the state auditor mentioned, liens are not being filed on all customer accounts with receivables of 90 days or more past due. So that's important that we do a better job on collections. And of course, we're still waiting on water meters at Beards Cove and Russellwood. And, those are just big issues I'm not trying to be critical of the county, but I'm trying to, as I go out the door at the end of December, hopefully we can start to gear up and work harder on some of these issues with utilities, because they seem to be at the forefront of all our deliberations here in the last couple months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, still got a few minutes to kill. All right, we had our budget workshops, of course. I attended a Mason Transit Authority meeting on the park and rides and the locations for them. We both attended the Metropolitan Parks District meeting up in Alderbrook. It was sad how confusing some of that was, and that's one of the reasons why we had talked about trying to get information out. It was worse than even I knew when they all got together in the same room. We're talking, there was a lot of different confusion on what's going to happen, what they think is going to happen, who can do what they can do, what the law is. There was an attorney that's part of the people running there, and they tried to explain to him and even got challenged by somebody else that was there saying that they're wrong, and it was pretty interesting. But hopefully when the time comes, if they are selected, if it does happen, hopefully they'll take in classes. That'd be good for them. I always think that's good for any elected officials, if at all possible. It's one of the things I miss about County Commission compared to the Port. The Port used to offer classes constantly, and it took advantage of every single one of them I can get. The county's Association County doesn't offer us very much, and I wish they would. It'd be good for us. Let's see. I attended a meeting for Suboxone, and we are this close. It looks like we will be having the first Suboxone clinic. There is one doctor who has stepped up. He's willing to do it. They'll be working with inpatient only in the beginning to set this up. This inpatient process will go through the behavioral health group over here, and it'll be starting slow, but I was a latecomer to this. I was not a fan of it, but the idea that some of these people, while they're being treated and they have to go through all the training and the what's the word I'm looking for? You can't just do abstinence training or anything else like that. You actually have to go through and have mental caseworkers working with you and train you how not to be an addict all the way through, or you can't be a part of the program. It's completely different than some of the things that I had heard about when I first came into this business, and I think it's going to be beneficial. We'll be bringing some more forward to the board here shortly. I attended North Mason Scholarship Breakfast, where we raised money for scholarships for North Mason through the Chamber of Commerce. We had our emergency meeting, and we had our briefings, and like Commissioner Jeffries, meeting after meeting after meeting got canceled because of the weather. I got to admit, I enjoyed some of the stuff I was seeing online. I don't post much when it comes to Facebook, but I do watch it, and you got to admit, it's pretty funny. People were really mad that storm never came. They were really upset, and they were complaining about it, but then I love some of the things that they posted. There was one that showed a white plastic lawn furniture with the chair backwards, and it says something like the great storm of 2016, we will rebuild. The chair's knocked down. Another one said, damn storm knocked out my refrigerator light. It was so strong. And I know some of those things, I thought it was pretty funny, but I'm awful glad it did not happen in the way that we thought it was going to. Our staff need a kudos. They were really on the ball and ready in case it did. And thanks to the commission for stepping up early and making sure we had that meeting in case something did happen. And then that brought us back to briefings again. So I had a big chunk just canceled out all the way through. This next week, we have a budget workshop after this. I have Mason Transit Authority meeting later on today. Chamber of Commerce debate tonight. Budget workshop. Women Democrats are having a luncheon, and they're having both candidates there. Hood Canal Coordinating Council. Economic Development Council meeting. MTA Finance. I don't have that in my phone, but I usually attend that.
Actually, that's a subcommittee.
Okay. No. Yeah, I'm on that subcommittee.
Oh, I didn't know you
Yeah,
were. I thought it was just me, Wes Martin, and
Oh,
Jeanette.
okay, so not the budget
Not
one
the
that we're
budget
doing. Okay,
workshop, no.
good. So I will not be there. Thank you. What is this? We have the Lori Evans, Pope Resources is requesting us to meet with them and go over some of the things they'd like to do with some land and put it into trust. Is that just me?
I was not invited to that meeting, no.
Okay.
I hadn't heard that.
Oh,
I know
okay.
she lobbies for the company.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it before, but it's in my phone, so I assumed it's in yours. Conference call on the water issue with Wasac. This is a big event. This can have a great impact on us if we're not upfront on it and trying to do something about it. And the Association of Counties is working on different ways to mitigate the damages that it can have to the county and how best to handle it. EDC luncheon, I have Mount Moriah Temple Board meeting briefings. That brings us back to our budget briefings again, and we have a few minutes. One of the things I want to tell you is this little thing here. My birthday was the other day, and I had an agreement with my daughter. She agreed and told me I had to do it. I'm wearing a button that says "My daughter is number one" to celebrate that. And on the comments on the comedian, one of my favorite bumper stickers that I ever seen says, "I'm not schizophrenic, neither am I."
I did want to go back to your discussion regarding the potential audit findings on the accountability audit. It's important to remember and to know that this is the 2015 actions of 2015 and not 2016. Our Public Works Department has been working on those very issues, and I suspect that we will show a tremendous amount of progress in our response to any audit findings on that particular issue. In fact, the finance director for the Public Works Department has been very diligent about providing updates to the commission on where we are in collections, and thank you for bringing that up. We will ask in the next briefing where we are on the development of policies and setting the liens. I believe that is happening in 2016. Is that correct? I'm asking you, even though you don't follow or that's not your department. I also wanted to take the opportunity. Oh,
Go ahead. I'd like to speak. Get a chance. Go ahead.
okay. I was going to change subject, so go ahead.
I want to make something. I want to remind everybody of something about this too. On the audit, we were pleased this last time as they looked at us and explained to us that we have overcome a lot of the past problems, the problems of past commissions, that we've overcome those, and they gave us quite a compliment of how far we've come to where now they're finally able to work on the little stuff because we've fixed all the big things that had been terribly wrong for many, many years before we came here. And they actually gave us a pat on the back for all of our efforts and what we've been able to do since we've been here.
Well, I'm not that optimistic. I believe that the urban growth area of Belfair is too large to service by a small county. I firmly believe after not only 12 years as a commissioner, but many years as the Economic Development Council executive director, that it is just practically impossible for a small county to fully service with utilities that large area. And I firmly believe we should reduce the size of the urban growth area in Belfair, and perhaps allocate some of that population to Shelton or to Allen, because just putting sewer lines out to greenfields or empty space is not going to make much sense. But I do want to just ask you, Commissioner, another one question. You mentioned the opioid treatment issue here in Mason County. I don't believe there is any methadone available in Mason County, and this has been an issue for years and years. That people that are addicted and that are at least taking the step to be on methadone and trying to change their lives have to get. It was a bus early in the morning that went to Olympia, and I think that's still the case.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to find those services, and I know you both have been working very hard on this, for individuals that are trying to change their lives and get into recovery. So, while we're seeing some progress, still, I think that bus leaves at like 6 in the morning or something. It's a full day to go all the way to Olympia to get a paper cup of orange juice and come back and perhaps go to your job.
Yeah, and just so you know, we didn't even, when the community got together and had that forum, that was one issue that was put to the side really quickly because it's a federal program that it is so much harder to try and get started. Some of the other ones that they talked about had no follow-through and no training for the individuals. And this particular type, Suboxone, is one that's actually designed to do some of the same stuff that methadone does, but with the idea that they actually come off it. Methadone is one they just keep you on for life, and you fall off, you fall
I
on.
wouldn't characterize methadone
Well,
exactly that way.
I'm actually characterizing how the doctor characterized it. That's what he said. That's why he's doing the Suboxone instead. I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you what he said, but that's why he's moving forward with this. He's done it before in Forks, and he would like to sit up here, and he thinks the success rate is much greater than anything he's ever seen when he's doing the methadone.
Yeah, and I think a methadone clinic is definitely a different alternative, and I am glad that people are, that the energy is moving forward on Suboxone. But one of the speakers who was at that opioid forum was the director or one of the staff members for the Evergreen clinic of some kind that does provide the methadone services in Olympia and Grace Harbors County, and it's another form, but she emphasizes that there is case management and lots of discussion with their patients about treatment to go into just, get them off the methadone. So it's not always just a forever ever, and it's not without case management around it and counseling.
Case management's the key to success for any of this.
Absolutely.
It's a big part.
Absolutely. I failed to announce that I would be attending the Criminal Justice Working Team meeting, which we will have in attendance the director of the Behavioral Health Organization, who will share with law enforcement at that meeting the hopeful soon services to start for mobile crisis response outreach, which is yet another tool for law enforcement and for our addressing the impacts of mental health and substance abuse on our community. So I invite anybody that wants to come. It's 7:30 in the morning tomorrow morning. But once we have the contractor up and running, that company, Telecare, will also come address our law enforcement through the Criminal Justice Working Team on training and accessing those services. Well, we did it, gentlemen. We made it to 9:30, and we have a continuation of a public hearing that we first started last week. And this is a public hearing to consider a code amendment for low-intensity mixed use in the Shelton urban growth area. Barbara Adkins, our planning manager, why don't you introduce this topic and where we left off, perhaps.
Okay, thank you. Barbara Atkins, Department of Community Services. This is a proposal for a code amendment to low-intensity mixed use, which is in the Shelton urban growth area. The proposal is for self-storage facilities, as is written today. Just a little bit of background. I won't go back into the whole spiel that we did last week. But the original proposal as it came into our department was a request to amend the code for recreation storage, which is the storage of large seasonal equipment, boats, jet skis, snowmobiles, RVs, that sort of thing. And that went to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission deliberated over that, and a majority vote recommended approval to the Board of County Commissioners. I brought it forward, and in briefings, the Commission had asked that the proposal be amended to self-storage instead of recreation storage. That information was also relayed to the Planning Commission, and they suggested that if the board was going to look at self-storage, that perhaps they consider adding a special use permit to that. Instead of just to be an outright allowed use, it would be allowed as a special use. So the proposal that came in last Tuesday was for self-storage units with the addition of a definition of self-storage, because for some reason we don't have an actual definition, so there'd be 2 code amendments to go with that. And then the added recommendation from the Planning Commission that came in later that a special use permit be attached to that. So the staff recommendations, there was 3, potentially 4, that the board consider approving the self-storage as the proposal reads, or consider approving self-storage in the category of special uses. Of course, the board can take no action or deny the proposal altogether. And on behalf of the applicants and their original proposal, if the board is not able or not willing to move forward with the self-storage at this point, that the original proposal for recreation storage be brought back for consideration.
Are there any questions for Barbara? Commissioner,
Well,
there were a lot of options for us.
a lot of options, and I'm sorry I wasn't here for the public hearing, so I'm playing a little bit of catch-up for it. But so that if we do nothing, make no changes, what would happen to an applicant? There would be virtually no code to enforce.
If you don't approve the recommendation, you mean if you effectively deny the application? Right, they would not get the code amendment, and that use would not be allowed in the,
That use would, so we would, if we take no action, that use would not be allowed.
right, if you don't change the code.
Okay.
And where we left off last Tuesday, Commissioner, was one commissioner was okay with the allowed use, and one commissioner wanted to add the special use permit, and that's kind of the deadlock we landed at.
Well, there was one other thing that was included, though. I wanted to have recreational storage included without a special use permit, but a special use permit required for self-storage. And also I want to add that, because I don't know if we're going to do testimony, it was recommended, I guess unanimously, by the Planning Commission that we have a special use permit for self-storage. So I was trying to honor their hard work and everything. But the recreational storage would not require any of that.
Okay, so question.
Please.
Questions at a good time now. Okay, so I did receive this from Marilyn Vogler talking about design standards, and I assume, was this testimony that was given to all of the commissioners?
Yes.
Okay, so I read through that, and it appears to me then that the county did not adopt all of the design standards that the city had,
True,
right?
right.
But at some time in the future, the idea of an urban growth area is that the city will expand to that urban growth area and assume the services.
Yes.
Wouldn't it make more sense then, I can't ask you this question, but it seems then it would make more sense to have those design standards in effect so that development will occur that will be compatible with the surrounding area when the city makes annexations.
Well, I know that they were not adopted intentionally. It wasn't an oversight. It was something that they wanted to leave to develop the county's own design standards in the future. Something, maybe the design standards that the city has are more at a city level of design, and they would be altered into something that was more accommodating to the Shelton urban growth area, and it just never happened. So it just kind of sits blank.
You say they.
The committee that got together and put the Shelton UGA regulations together in 2000.
Okay, so it wasn't an oversight. It was
intentional.
It was intentional, and it was just a piece of work that did not happen.
Right. Put off to the future. We never got to
Very
it.
unfortunate.
Yeah, I think it is. It's something that's going to be inconsistent. So let's say 20 years down the road or 15 years down the road, the city annexes a piece of property, a portion of the urban growth area, and if our standards are not in compliance with the standards that the city has had over the years, it will just be a different, obviously, properties will be treated differently.
Yeah. Some of the items that are built will not match what might have been required for other pieces in the city.
So, for example, a sign code, or now within the city, you have signs. If you have a newer business going in, you have to have a sign in a low spot. If we had design standards for areas in the urban growth area with big, high signs which don't meet the city's code, they're going to look out of place and maybe benefit the company because they have a more prominent sign versus the businesses that have had to have the lower sign. So I just like to see consistency carried forward.
Any other questions for Barbara? Gentlemen, my intention in continuation of the hearing and in my vote to approve the continuation was to allow public testimony.
Please.
Okay. I should ask, is there anybody in the audience that has questions of our staff? Thank you. And we will thank you, Barbara. And we'll open the floor for testimony. Is there anybody that'd like to testify on this issue? Ms. Vogler.
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar in the city of Shelton. I want to announce that I am part of the Planning Advisory Commission that has considered this, but I speak today strictly as a member of the public. My interest began back in August 2015 when I saw a call for members of a committee for the Allen and Belfair UGAs pursuant to the revision of the comprehensive plan. I inquired why there was not one for the Shelton UGA, and I was told because of potential annexation, that part of the planning was taken care of in conjunction with the city. And so there was not a citizen advisory committee for Shelton. Now I find the county in the position of making what I consider major changes to the zoning code in permitting self-storage. Last week, the question came up about whether the city had design standards, and I am a process person, so I went looking for city design standards. And indeed, regarding zoning code, the city has 16 pages of design standards, and thank you, Commissioner Sheldon, for mentioning my correspondence. What I gave you yesterday was the couple of pages from that relates to low-intensity mixed-use zoning. The language in the county code was taken directly from the city code in some parts. So where they talk about the intent of low-intensity mixed use, the county says the low-intensity mixed use designation is intended to provide for a mixture of residential and commercial uses in close proximity or integrated within the same structure while maintaining a high degree of design standards. The designation is intended to maintain the historic and small-town character of existing neighborhoods and gateway while allowing compatible commercial development to occur. That is exactly word for word the language in the Shelton City Code describing low-intensity mixed use. The county has a section 17.07.295 about design review. All applicable requirements of section 17.07.900 of this title shall be satisfied. Conversions and rehabilitations of existing structures which do not alter the design and character of the original structure are exempt from design requirements. That language, too, with the exception of the numeric reference, is exactly the same as the Shelton City Code for zoning. The one difference is that in the Shelton Code, they refer to 20.64.060, which is this 16 pages. And though there are numerous references in the county code to 17.07.900, there is no section in the county code. You can't find it. It's the design section standard. Design standards are not unusual in Mason County. It's not simply the city that has them. In the county in general, they're taken care of under special use permits. And when I read the phrase performance standards, performance zoning, as it applies in the county, I asked what that meant and was told this is what comes into play with a special use permit request. Performance standards, and this is a definition, are zoning controls that regulate the effects or impacts of a proposed development or activity on a community. And so when someone applies for special use permit, the planning department considers impact, considers how that will affect the community, and they negotiate design standards, so to speak. The Belfair UGA also has design standards. They have 4 pages of design standards for anything in the Belfair UGA that regulates everything from commercial to multifamily, what buildings should look like. Multi-story buildings shall include modulation and articulation features, and there are 4 pages of design standards in the Belfair UGA. The Shelton UGA, then, is unique in being the only part of Mason County, as you point out, since we didn't adopt any design standards, that has none. I worry about self-storage because I think of that wall of orange doors that you see coming down Highway 101, I can't remember where the exit is, in the area of Trader Joe's. It takes up the entire hill of that side of the roadway. I worry about it because of the razor wire on Brockdale as you get toward Dalby Road in Union. Low-intensity mixed use is intended to include residential, and I wouldn't want to build in a neighborhood where I put a home next to razor wire. I'm sorry. At the same time, I really appreciate the conundrum that our applicants are in. I don't want to hold up this project. It's an important project. Storage is kind of a necessary evil. And so I encourage you to temporarily place a special use permit requirement on any storage units in low-intensity mixed use, because adopting the design standards is a code amendment that require a public hearing, would require a process that's time-consuming, that would probably keep this project from happening, and I don't want to see that happen. And so, as I said, I hope you'll adopt this code change with special use for any of them as a temporary stand-in to give some protection to the UGA while you consider the design standard adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to testify? Thank you.
Len Williams, Foster & Williams Architects. I'm working with the applicant. My recollection from the testimony last week was that the focus of the questions was on whether a special use permit was required in the other similar areas and zones of the city of Shelton and the UGA, not whether there were design standards or not. Now, I understand there's a connection there. I understand that the commissioners can choose to regulate by way of a special use permit in the lack of design standards, but I don't believe that was the question that was really being discussed last week. My concern is that that whole issue of design standards really takes us away from this proposal. The commissioners certainly have the opportunity to add the special use permit requirement. It does add cost, it does add regulation and time to the applicant's process, but you can choose to do that if you feel that that's necessary. But it is not the same as design standards, and so we would, hope that the commission would consider either not attaching the special use permit requirement or separating the recreation storage from the self-storage and dealing with it that way. We believe that that could also be a good opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else that would like to testify? Hearing none, I'll close the public testimony portion, and we will move to commissioner deliberations. Are you feeling up to speed on the issue?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I can, where we left off the last time, I understand where you're coming from, but for me, the idea of low-intensity mixed use, the term low intensity does have a meaning. I do believe that recreational storage should fit within that, and, design standards outside of this, as it would normally be an allowed use, it just wasn't put in there for low intensity. When we're talking about a larger storage unit, and remembering that I don't view it, as a past member of the Planning Commission, as you don't view it as your project. It has nothing to do with your project. So whatever we put in goes for whatever project may show up there. And it can be an extremely large project in the future or somebody else. I don't think that low-intensity mixed use is a perfect candidate for that type of project. So I still think it could be allowed, but only with a special use permit, because it could be an extremely large venue, and I think it should be vetted through for this particular zoning of low-intensity mixed use. But recreational, I think, fits. So I'd like to see it with recreational allowed and self-storage allowed with special use permit. That's where I was the last week also.
And you?
I was, as of last week, I agreed that there was some discussion about design standards, but because there had been no design standards in our code, I was very reticent to then default over to the special use permit process for design standards. As staff had explained, the type of impacts that special use permits generally entertain are parking, distances from other development, and things that are generally under a SEPA type of discussion, and not how does it look, or how would it fit into the community architecturally. And I very much did not want to add another layer with the hope and thought that it would architecturally, it would help us any development architecturally fit into the neighborhood. Because I don't believe that this special use permit process would do that at all. And a special use permit is not the same as design standards, and so it's not a good substitution for it. So I didn't want to add that extra hurdle if it wasn't going to do anything that really the proponents for a special use permit wanted. So I think politics and land use is all about compromise. I would compromise in that I had wanted and instructed staff to take a look at just outright adding storage facilities as an allowed use. But because of the need for that, and because when we pick and choose the type of businesses that can go into communities, I think that's not the function of government. I think design standards might be a function of government, but not the type of businesses, especially if they're retail. So I would compromise and agree to approving recreational storage as an outright allowed use in the low-intensity mixed-use zones of the Shelton urban growth area. And then we would prevail upon staff to work hard on looking at, or at least with the Planning Commission to look at going ahead and adopting science or design standards that are appropriate.
So just to try to sort in my mind what you're saying and what Commissioner Netherland is saying, you're not in favor of a special use permit for recreational storage.
For the recreational storage, there was not a recommendation from our Planning Commission that would require a special use permit. But when staff had come to the commission reporting the progress of this particular code amendment, I don't know if we were all in agreement, but I had asked that we not just limit it to recreational storage, but self-storage, and that would allow both types of storage. I don't recall your question, but now, now going back to recreational storage, if it meant we didn't have to require a special use permit.
Well, I'm still confused on what your position is. So recreational storage, do you favor a special use permit?
I do not.
And and for self-storage?
I do not.
Do not. And
Neither.
then Commissioner Netherland, you prefer?
No special use permit for recreational, special use permit for the larger self-storage.
Uh-huh.
But again, and I would add, I think if this had been a different, maybe just a straight mixed use or a commercial or whatever, then I think it would have I would push it through without no restrictions at all, or without no special use permit. But being low intensity mixed use, that's where the difference comes in for me.
I think one of the difficulties here is what was adopted back in the very early 1990s with the zoning process that we have. Len was there at all these meetings, and there's no community that I can think of that picks businesses that are allowed, and that's the zoning, basis of the zoning. Most zoning codes pick businesses that are not allowed, like slaughterhouses and mining or whatever it is, and those are the pieces, the types of businesses that are kept out of areas. We have this long list of businesses that are allowed, and then something comes along that's a little different. So, because of the changes that are going to happen, I think we're going to need more population allocated to the city of Shelton. I would prefer to have a special permit for both the recreational and the self-storage in mixed-use development. So I don't think, after querying both the other commissioners, I don't think there's agreement of I think we all have different positions here.
But I can understand
Yeah.
where you're coming from on it, because I could almost agree with it, except for in this particular situation, I truly believe that absent of everything we're doing, that recreational storage would have already been in this if we'd had that discussion years ago. So to have a special use permit on something that actually fits in the zoning doesn't make as much sense to me to make them go through hurdles specifically for that, because it doesn't have the design standards or anything else. What I worry about, why I would want a special use permit for the larger ones, is I know this one is not it, but let's say a 20-acre one pops up in the middle of this low-intensity mixed use.
Right.
That's what I worry about, and that's what would have to be mitigated and talked through and decide if it actually fits.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of those special use permits by a long shot, but sometimes they are there for a purpose, and this is one of those purposes, I think, just to make sure that it would be vetted before anything like that would happen in such a low-intensity mixed use place. So I'm still in favor of allowing the one that actually fits this zone to go forward without a special use permit.
And describe to me what you're seeing as recreational storage.
No, see, you weren't here for that. I actually asked that. That's
Yeah,
why.
okay.
Could you give the definition, please, of recreational storage? That makes a difference to me, too.
Are we adding a definition of recreational storage as
It
well?
already exists.
Okay, thank you. And what is that?
The storage of recreational vehicles, boats, boat trailers, camper trailers, personal motorcraft, and similar outdoor recreational equipment.
Compared to the other type with the big giant.
But that could be stored outdoors.
It doesn't specify whether it's indoor or outdoor.
So if you're on the bypass, Shelton bypass, and you're going, it's easier to see when you're going, well, both ways, north or south there, at where the Matlock interchange is, and you look over to the left, that's a wide open area that gets all kinds of, there's sailboats in there, there's motor homes, there's trailers, some of the vehicles, perhaps they don't even operate, they're all sitting there.
You can limit it to indoor recreational storage. To make that definition more specific, that the recreation storage is indoor only, and that would prevent the outdoor storage of those kinds of vehicles.
Then we're back
That's
to
a
the same
concern.
issue, that I think that people want the design standards over. If you read through, and thank you so much, Marilyn, for providing us a copy of the design standards. If you read over the design standards, what they were trying to avoid was the blank wall.
Right, I read that.
So if now we require indoor storage of recreational storage, we still have the blank wall issue. And I will again stress that the special use permit process will not prevent a blank wall.
I agree.
So it's a function of isn't I think what we're coming down to is an inappropriate use without design standards. But I would say that it's not, I feel like if a proponent wants to invest in this community and we come up, oops, we didn't regulate that one, then I don't feel like that's fair to the applicant. I think that the recommendation from the Planning Commission that it just be allowed outright, if we're going to defer to the type of study they had, that perhaps I would err on deferring to or accepting the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Which is a special use permit for,
No, a recreational storage outright.
is that their,
Well, they had a
That was
couple
their
of
original
recommendations.
proposal.
That was their original recommendation.
That was the original one that went to the planning commission, was just
Yeah.
recreation.
but that isn't what they sent us.
That was their second opinion about self-storage.
There were 4 options. If self-storage was the allowed use, please do it with a special use permit.
I can go with that. I can go with just recreational in the beginning. For this, I have a feeling that when they do look at the storage units, this will still come back to us with unallowed use of special use permit in that zone. But I'm okay with at least allowing them to move forward with this now under recreational without. So I think it does fit the zone.
So, are there any motions to be considered for a specific
Have we finished all our discussion on that, Commissioner Sheldon, or do you have any more that you want to add, or?
Well, I still think that we should have some higher standards in the city. I mean, I'm not a city commissioner, but the urban growth area is going to be the city.
I guess I wanted to ask
So-
you, do you believe a special use permit would serve the purpose of creating design standards, or do we put this question aside? I mean, I feel like the alternatives are hoping that a special use permit will serve the purpose of a design standard, or put this question aside and ask that there be design standards developed and considered.
Well, I think the special use permit maybe puts a finger in the dike, because sometimes, people see opportunities and that they think may change in the future, so. I know that they're a necessity. We're a rural community. A lot of people need places to store their toys instead of taking them home to Bellevue on the weekend. So I think there's a need for it, but also I think there's a neighborhood question. Mixed use residential areas are once you change them, they become perhaps less desirable to live in. So I'm reluctant to go without a special use permit, because it might at least foster design standards in the future quicker than just leaving it alone.
Madam Chair. I'd like to clarify, though, this is not, although residential is allowed in the low-intensity mixed use, this is not a residential area. This is a low-intensity mixed use area that allows residential. And again, that's why I think that it's okay to have these type of things there. I don't expect that they would through the special use permit have anything to do with beautification or things like that for the community. What I would assume is that they will work to right size it for its ability to be used in that community for ingress, egress, size, scope. They, as you all know, they go through all that stuff when they're looking at this. And this could help make sure that something that is a huge behemoth is not born there in an area that is low intensity mixed use. So mine's not for design standards. That's not what my I understand where Maryland's coming from. Mine is literally for the protection of the community and to make sure that it stays within the scope of low-intensity mixed use. You can have a complete self-storage unit that would fit in that, in my opinion. I think you can have a small one that is set up that can handle the community, but I would just hate to see the 20-acre one built there, where I think special use permit would keep that from happening. I still think it's a good idea. I can go with just allowing for recreational storage, but I still think it's a good idea to allow the self-storage to continue there, just that they have to go through a special use permit in this zone. When we talk about commercial and.
So you're adding, so you're talking about adding recreational storage as an outright permitted.
That's correct.
And self-storage as a special use permitted.
That's correct, in this zone.
I could agree with that, Commissioner.
No, I think they both need special use permits. So.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move the Mason County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts an ordinance and the proposed amendments to Title 17 with the addition of allowing recreational storage and with a special use permit, self-storage facilities in the Shelton urban growth area.
I'm sorry, could you,
I know, I want to make sure I get that, because I don't want to, I want to make sure not to put the two together. So, Mason County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts an ordinance of proposed amendments to Title 17 with the addition of recreational storage as an allowed use and a special permit required for self-storage facilities in the Shelton urban growth area.
are you reading something, or are you?
I'm adding the recreational to number 2 under the recommended action on the first page. Number 2, I'm adding recreational.
Where would you add on this?
Number 2, under, after with addition.
Could you repeat your
Sure.
motion, please?
Mason County Board of Commissioners, I move that the Mason County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts by ordinance the proposed amendments to Title 17 with the addition of allowance of recreational storage I don't know how I said it before.
Well, if there's no requirement already, do you need to?
It doesn't allow for recreational storage currently.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Oh, okay, with the addition of recreational storage. We'll do that with the addition of recreational storage and with a special use permit, self-storage. So Mason County, I move the Mason County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts ordinance, the proposed amendments to Title 17 to include recreational storage and with a special use permit, self-storage. A special use permit, self-storage facilities in the Shelton urban growth area.
Are you able to read that back, or would you like me to try that, Julie, our clerk of the board?
I can probably read it back.
Thank you.
Commissioner Netherland moved to approve the proposed amendment to Title 17 with the addition of allowing recreational storage as an allowed use and a special use permit required for self-storage in the Shelton urban growth area.
That works for me. Or it could say self-storage as an allowed use with a special use permit, but either one will work.
I would second that motion. Any further discussion?
Well, I think by the definition that Barbara read with recreational storage, it could just be open air. I mean, you might have a fence around it, you might not, but I think it's just going to be the opportunity for open air storage. And what is storage? Is storage of a vehicle that runs, or it's used, or is it a vehicle that, or something that can be just left on a trailer and pay the monthly storage fee, so.
And I agree, and again, I'm not looking for the beautification aspect of it, I'm looking for the allowed use in the zone. And it's a low-intensity mixed-use zone, it should be able to handle things that are low-intensity mixed-use in design.
So Commissioner Netherland, I appreciate that, your discussion regarding that, housing is almost an ancillary use in the intention of a mixed-use area. It's an allowed use, but it's not the primary use. It's not like allowing some businesses in a residential zone. It's the other way around. And so I think there's some deferences to allowing commercial development in a mixed use, whatever that type is. We consistently have issues with the fact that our zoning has allowed uses as opposed to not allowed uses. And at some point, our work plan for planning is getting longer and longer. There's the look at the urban growth area size in Belfair. There's the need to adopt design codes, the potential of completely upending our allowed use and not allowed use way of in our development code. There's a lot of work ahead. But in the meantime, there are entrepreneurs that want to invest in this community. And somehow or another, we have to support that while we go through these discussions. And this is not a perfect fix at all, in my opinion. But politics is messy, as they say, the sausage making of legislation. And so I will have to defer to this compromise. And I am in favor of doing this, at the very least, to allow our applicants an opportunity to invest in this community. Any further discussion?
Well, I appreciate your comments, and the applicants, they always come with good intentions, but I just think that there will be others that will probably not bring the amount of financing or the care of the neighborhood that our applicant might have. So.
And I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Nays, same sign.
No.
Okay. Motion has passed. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your discussion and this healthy discussion. And I'm glad our Community Services Director is here to hear the workload ahead of us, and I'm glad that you can focus on planning as opposed to all the other duties you had in the past. Okay, so that brings us to item number 11 on our agenda, which is the opportunity for department directors or elected officials to address the public. We have one department director. Would you like to address the public? Thank you.
Dave Wyndham, Mason County Community Services Director. Over the past 4 years, we've been working on this whole concept of foundational public health services, and it's actually starting to come to a culmination. Last week, we started the actual public outreach on what does foundational public health look like for the state of Washington. And as we drill down into those things, so just for reference, if you take all the things that public health can do, what are the things that public health has to do and has to do well and should be properly funded to do? We met last week in Seattle. We've had multiple meetings since then, and there is a request going before the legislature to help bolster, especially the small jurisdictions like Mason County and Lincoln County and Asotin and all those small counties. But there are issues facing the large counties as well. We've actually come to an agreement with Seattle King County, who supports the small counties, which is a really a big step. So the small counties are actually working with the large counties for the first time that I can remember in public health. So we've made some big advances. If the legislation goes through, there will be a substantial increase in some state funding to allow local public health like ourselves to deal with things that have been canceled in the last few years, like tobacco programs and water quality issues. Some flexible spending will allow us to do the things that we really have to do. So it's a culmination of 4 years worth of work, and I think we're actually seeing the fruit of it. So. So,
Well, thank you for your work on that. I didn't know when you were selected to be our Community Services Director, we'd also have a great legislative advocate.
so, and the other big thing is, of course, the water decision piece, and we'll all be meeting on that on Thursday, right? So, and our staff's been doing a lot of research. We've been reaching out to a lot of other jurisdictions to find out what they're doing with the decision, and there's a lot that's just up in the air. I did meet in Spokane Friday. We had planning boot camp, number 3. So spent the day with the attorneys discussing Growth Management Act. Spent the morning on Growth Management Act, on marijuana, on sign regulations, on a lot of those things that are have recent Supreme Court and other judicial decisions have come out that will affect how we do business in Mason County.
Director Wyndham, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Hearst decision and the potential impact on exempt wells. Do you feel in your study so far that this decision does have an impact on communities that do not have closed watersheds?
Yes.
It will still have that, okay.
Because the way that I read, and jump in here, we're still in the process of researching all this. The way I read the discussion of the Kittitas piece of it, so there's two decisions. There's the Kittitas decision, which was two-pronged, which had a Growth Management Act piece plus an exempt well piece. Plus the Hearst decision will change. We'll have to change some things that we do in order to continue to do exempt wells. So there may be some code that needs to be written, and we'll look at what Kittitas has done, because they've had to deal with the Growth Management Board. Part of the problem is you write something, you take it to the Growth Management Board, and they'll tell you that they like it or they don't. But they don't tell you what they want. So it's kind of trial and error until you get to that point.
I was, in my previous life, had been working on exempt well allowances and the potential of having them not allowed in the Dungeness watershed. And at that time, had advocated that maybe we get a more realistic picture of the actual water draws that private wells have. They have by law, they are allowed 5,000 gallons a day, but for the most part, unless you're a farmer or a rancher, you will not ever get near there. And so had talked about, what if some of the private well owners would, even as a test case, put a meter on their private wells just to see the type of usage. And I got to tell you, them's fighting words.
I was going to say, I'm shocked you even said it.
So if you take a little different tack on it and you look at septic system design. So for a 3-bedroom house, a septic system is designed to handle 360 gallons a day for a single-family residence. So of your 5,000 gallons a day on your exempt well, you're using 360 gallons. What's the rest of that being used for? Watering up to a quarter acre of yard. So I think that the exempt well, we're getting nowhere close to that kind of water utilization.
But it was adopted in 1906.
Right.
When people didn't live in small houses and in the suburbs, they had farms.
Right, so a lot of that water was used for farming. Now, water use has changed.
Big gardens.
Over the past 50 years, in that in homes, specifically in homes, there's more water use now than there used to be. With the addition of garbage disposals, washing machines, those sorts of things, water use increased, and that's why it was increased to 360 gallons a day on like a 3-bedroom, 240 for a 2-bedroom.
One thing you might look at, you talked about this decision and other associations or groups, but the PUD Association, John Counts is their water director for waters, and he has put out a memo. He's an attorney with their attorneys at the PUD Association, so you might check that out too.
Right. So
and give you some other opinions, which are going to be allies for the counties, I think.
Right. So some of the things we're looking at is will this require us to develop a water bank?
Yeah.
Water bank.
Right. So and that may be one of the things in order to comply with the Growth Management Act that we would have to do. Other things that we may have to do is code that would allow us to prevent daisy chaining of developments, where you have one company that calls itself 4 different names in order to put in, multiple wells in basically what is the same subdivision. So and that's a requirement that the Kittitas decision had, was that it's on the county to make sure that the people aren't violating ecology rules.
Yeah. As is the case in our courts and our criminal, and I'm so glad there is the Association of Counties in Walsalfo to share with the legislature how much of their work we do, or not, how much of the work of the state counties do. I don't think people are totally aware of that, and I think there's a tremendous, I'm thankful we have a commissioner in the legislature to help your companions understand any little change over here can have amazing impacts, fiscal impacts on counties in added requirements and mandates.
Yeah, we're subdivisions of the state.
We are.
So the state doesn't run our court system, doesn't run our health department. So those are big issues. And most legislators forget that.
Uh-huh. And when you talk about a water bank, it could be years before we can all agree on the size of that bank. It could be years and years, because we have 2 very active tribes in this county who will definitely want to have a say in that. And
Right. So right now, it's really a matter of getting our heads wrapped around what does the decision mean, and then how do counties react to these 2 decisions.
Okay. Well, thank you for your work. Okay, commissioners, if there's no other business,
Madam Chair, move we adjourn.
And I'll second the motion to adjourn.
we are adjourned. Thank you. Okay, I'm not passing this on because it has to be rewritten.
Okay.
What we just passed.
Okay.
Okay.